Hey, don't write a messy first draft. You don't have to. This week on the podcast, I'm going to continue my conversation with writer and writing coach Megan Maclaine. If you missed part one of our conversation, it's available wherever you're listening to this. Scroll back up, you can find it. If you don't find it, send me a message and I will send the link directly to you. This week on our conversation, I'm going to ask Megan about some common writing advice that you may have seen out in the interwebs and get her take on some of the most commonly given writing advice. So you're going to want to stick around to hear what Megan has to say about this. So without further ado, let's get to part two of the conversation with writer and writing coach Megan Maclaine. So you've always dreamed of writing a book, but you haven't done it yet. Why not? It's not because you don't have what it takes. You do. It's not because you don't have the time, and it's not because you don't have the right tools. I've become convinced the main thing holding you back from finally writing that book is your mindset. For far too long, we have subscribed to limiting beliefs that have sabotaged our goals, undercut our progress, and kept us from chasing our dreams of writing. Not anymore. Your story deserves to be written, and you are the only person who can write it. Fear and imposter syndrome are not the authors here. You are. The best way to battle your limiting beliefs is to get words on the page and to keep going when it gets tough. My name is TC Burr, and I am so excited to walk with you on this writing journey and to encourage you every step of the way. Because it's not that you haven't written your book, it's just that you haven't written your book yet. Let's change that. The way that I connected to you and found your stuff, I don't know how the algorithm pushed your content to me. It was around Christmas time, and I saw this video pop up about I think it was about Home Alone or the Santa Claus, one of those. So, which, by the way, two of my favorite movies as a kid, and I love the way that you kind of go through those and pull out like, okay, here's this character development thing that's happening, or here's this plot point, and you can see how it's built. Like, that was really interesting because as a kid and even as an adult, like a lot of times I watch movies, and before I was a writer, for sure, I just watched the movie and thought, oh, this is a good movie or it's not. But like to see these story themes kind of weaved in and out is awesome. But a question related to that, had you really never seen Home Alone until like you were watching it live on YouTube?
Yes, admittedly, yeah. That was my first time watching Home Alone.
I, okay.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
I think
super alarmed when you said that. I was like, that can't be right.
yes, I think my mom didn't like all his sass. I can like watching it, I was like, oh, I understand. He's really rude to his parents, whether or not that's excusable because of how they treat him, whatever. Everyone's really rude to everyone, actually.
Yes.
But I think my mom definitely didn't like his sass and the way he spoke. She didn't want us learning that. And I think whenever I saw the trailers as a kid too, I was like, oh, I don't think I
Not
like
for
that
you,
kid,
huh?
you know, but
Okay. Okay. Hey,
yeah,
listen,
it's
your mom sounds awesome, and I'm kind of glad she didn't let you watch that as a kid. Okay, cool. Let's go back to writing. What resources do you recommend to people? So are there any like craft books or podcasts or any, I mean, obviously you have a lot of content that you're creating to help people, but outside of your stuff, like are there other folks that you try and connect people to if they're struggling or if they have questions or maybe things that have helped you as a writer?
Yes. Apart from my story development program, I would say best thing you can do, especially if you're starting out and you're like, I just gotta get my feet wet. I don't know if I can take a whole like big long course or, I'm just trying to learn some things. I would say local library writing group. Most libraries have a free writing group. Join, just commit to like a month and just see what it's like and just start getting in the rhythm of kind of investing in your writing in that way. Um, that was a really indispensable step for me when I started because I got feedback and I learned how to give feedback. And it got me used to not taking it so personally when someone's like, I don't think this chapter works.
Mm.
It got me going, okay, I'm not going to burst into tears every time like I did the first time. So then I can just go home and rework, show up the next week and see if it was better. Indispensable. So if that's an option, that would be my first step kind of suggestion. And then I think, learn how to read closely. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of this book. I think it's How to Read Literature Like a Professor. It's been around for a long time. I think I actually read it in high school, but that's a great, but like learn how to, whenever you're reading a novel, how to kind of dissect it and go, okay, this is what the writer's doing here. How can I practice that? This is what is making this paragraph really stand out to me. How can I like incorporate that? Learning how to read closely that way. And then I would say, as far as books go, I think The Making of a Story by Alice LaPlante is probably one of my favorite ones. She gives you like a topic and then of an actual short story that says like, okay, this is a story that does that topic well. And then here are some questions to get you thinking about how to do it in your story. I'm just like, man, they all need to be written like that. It's so good. Um, so I'd say, yeah, local library, writers group, to get some feedback, and then How to Read Literature Like a Professor, learn how to close read, and then Making of a Story by Alice LaPlante. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are great. Thank you. And the local library thing I've heard people mention, but it's usually like just kind of like oh, and also you could try this. But like the fact that you led with that, I think is really powerful and really important. Because one of the things that I think is great about where we are in history is like we have so much connection online and so many opportunities digitally, but there's something different about just sitting in a room with other people and getting your pen and paper or your computer out and actually writing and talking about writing. So I think that's awesome. Yeah, cool. Okay, so you mentioned that you do editing services, you do writing coaching. It sounds like you've got a course or two where you help people kind of structure their story. So I'm curious, maybe just generally, if I'm a new or an early writer, I'm just kind of on the front end of getting into writing. What are some signs that it's time for me to reach out to Megan and get some help? Like when, because there's tons of free content out there, and I always push people to like, hey, learn as much as you can, practice, grow. But like at some point, just like anything in life, there's going to be a point where you're like, okay, I've done all I can do. Now it's time for me to call. Like the other night, I was installing a microwave in our kitchen because our microwave died, and like I have a drill. And so I started doing some things, taking some measurements, doing some things. And there was a point where like, I'm happy to say, like, I was able to do it without calling a pro. But there was a point where we were like, it was close. Like the bracket didn't really work the right way. And I had to like, the holes for the bolts weren't in the right place. I had to like remeasure. And so anyway, but there's a point where like, if it had gone too far, I probably would have said, okay, I need to call somebody to come do this for me, or at least to help me do it. So I don't know if that analogy works, but from your perspective, what are some signs, maybe if you're a new writer, that like, okay, it's time to call Megan. It's time to get some help.
I love that. I love that analogy and that question. Um, I think, I mean, my suggestion would be call earlier than you think you need to. Because I see this a lot, and I'm guilty of it too. Writers will just be like, "Oh, I'll just figure it out on my own," or "Oh, I'll just keep tinkering with it or rewriting it, or I'll just try writing my way through it." And it's like if you're new to it, especially, but even if you're not, you're probably going to just dig your hole a little bit deeper. Um, if you're looking to learn how to develop your novel well and then set yourself up for a bit of an easier time writing and revising, I'd say jump in, learn that ahead of time. Um, and if you want to learn it faster, call Megan. But yeah. And then I think, if you're not in that place, maybe you've already written a novel or you're halfway through, once you're getting to the point where you're stuck and you're going, wow, I spend more time thinking about how stuck I am and how I cannot move forward than I do actually moving forward, that would be a great place to say, okay, let's hop on a coaching call. Let's figure out what's getting you stuck, because there's always something, we can personalize it. Maybe it's just me, I'm just lazy, or I'm just a bad writer. It's usually something else. So let's get that sorted out so that you can keep on moving forward. But yeah.
That's great. And is that typically like the starting point, like that intro call where you get to know kind of where people are stuck and help kind of diagnose, and then you can guide them toward whatever's next? Is that usually how it works?
Yeah, I usually have people fill out a form. At least this is what I'm doing right now. And just let me know, like, this is my story, a little bit about my story. This is what's happening. That way I can say, hey, yes, we can hop on one call to talk through XYZ and get you next steps to move forward. Or maybe it's like, hey, I think this would be 2 calls and that would really get you set up. So yeah, but I do have kind of a form that people fill out to sort of gauge what they need help with.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I have a few more questions and we'll get into some hopefully rapid fire ones here at the end. But first, we talked a little bit about encouragement, and I'm huge on encouragement. So I think that is often one of the critical ingredients, especially when people find themselves like coming up on a catalyst moment in their life. Like you're like on the precipice of going for it. Like somebody else's words can kind of make or break whether or not that thing ever happens. And so, one of the things that I've asked a lot of my guests is like, talk a little bit about the role that that's played for you, and specifically if there's been a moment or a word that someone has offered that you would look back to and think, man, that's one of the most encouraging things that's ever happened. Do you have a moment like that you'd be willing to share?
Wow. I mean, for me, I feel really blessed and fortunate that I had a lot of encouragement with this growing up. I actually laugh with my mom now because I'm like, you probably over encouraged me because now I'm trying to do this entrepreneurial thing. She's like, yeah, probably. But I've met so many people who are like, my creativity was never encouraged. My dreams were never encouraged. I'm like, man, that is so sad to me because that's potential that is, being shut down. And so I always feel really grateful that at least in my family growing up, I had that. They were like, yeah, write a story. Why not? Let's take you to a play and we can see a story there. Um, and then I think one thing I go back to a lot is just my time in college. I took some writing classes just to like learn and see if, these chops were any good or what I had going on. And I had a professor in one of those classes be like, yeah, I think you got the stuff, I think you got some potential here. And I swear, like it's like you said, those words just stick in our heads, and then we can ride that train forever. I'm still riding that
Yeah.
train. I'm like, she said that to me one time 10 years ago. Um, but no, so I've been really fortunate. Even when I broke down in tears in front of my boss, it wasn't like, well, yeah, I guess we're going to fire you now because you're terrible at this. It was, no, you have potential. Let's grow this. And let's keep trying and practicing. So now I feel like as I'm older, I have to encourage myself a little bit more, and remember those moments because now I can get a little bit more of that like critical, you've been doing this for a while, so
Mm,
should be, you know
mm.
what I mean? Um, but yeah, I've been very fortunate that way.
It's so funny to hear you say, because I'm so big on mindset and how pivotal that is for all of this. And it's so funny how like imposter syndrome changes over the like, because early on it's like you've never done this before. What makes you think you can do it? And now you just said like, well, you've been doing this for a while. Like you should probably be, goodness gracious, man. That's just so funny to me. It's so interesting to see like, and I think you mentioned even at the top, like you never really outgrow it or get rid of it. Like it's always there. But it's awesome to have those moments of encouragement. Sounds like you had a ton of them growing up, which is awesome. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I have a couple of rapid fire questions that I think you may have opinions on. I've never done this before, so hopefully it'll work. These are going to be true or false, and think back to your grade school days. If false, tell me why you think it's false. If you agree 100%, just say true and we'll move to the next one. I only have a couple. And a lot of these are around like advice, like common advice that people get when it comes to writing. Um, First, this one's more just for fun. Cats are better than dogs, true or false?
No, oh no, TC. How do you start with that
I
one?
just know you're super pro cat. Is your cat around? Like, is he?
Sonny, hide your ears. Yeah, he's in the other room. No, it's funny because I grew up a staunch dog person. I mean, I had cats too, but I was like, dogs are the best. And then I in college and all of that, I was like, oh, cats are just so peaceful. They're so relaxing. So. I mean, there's pros and cons. I can't say, but
All
I
right.
do love cats. I do love cats.
All right.
They're so.
Hopefully, the rest of these will not be quite as controversial. Sorry. I
Whoa.
came
But
out
no.
swinging, right?
Oh,
All right, all right, let's get into some writing advice. So, what should I write? People say, hey, stick to what you know, write what you know. True or false?
I think I would say half true, half false.
True, how
Am
false?
I allowed
Okay.
to say that?
Yeah, it's
I think it's write what you know internally and then have fun externally. So I think when people say that, what they mean is write what you know, like what you've experienced emotionally, internally. And I mean, that's what we tend to write about anyway, because that's what moves us. But externally, if we only wrote what we knew, there would be no fantasy. There would be no, sci-fi and all these crazy plots and whatnot. But I think when we really connect to the internal, the emotional side of it, that's what then the plot doesn't really matter. You can have fun with that, do whatever you want with it. But if you haven't lived that internal emotional experience, it's a bit harder, I think, to put yourself in those shoes as a writer. That's just my 2 cents. What do you think?
Oh, see, now you're not allowed to ask the questions. You just
Oh,
answer. No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, you think about like some of the like Save the Cat, they're like talk about all the different types of stories that exist, and there aren't a ton of them. Like there's, a handful of stories that most of us resonate, and a lot of them follow the same kind of patterns, but it's what makes them different and unique is the settings and the world building and all the different types of interactions that happen. So like, yeah, write what you know internally. I think that's a great answer. I have nothing to add. That was perfect. Okay, next thought, and this isn't really advice. But this is something I have heard people say. So, and I think I know your answer. Outlining is not creative. In fact, it's too restrictive.
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. As someone who teaches folks how to outline, I have to say false. I have to say false. Outlining, when it's done well, it is very creative. I think every writer that I've walked through my story development program, they would say there was nothing restrictive or non-creative about it. The whole time we're brainstorming ideas. I think when it feels restrictive, it tends to be when people are writing and they get a new idea that would be a tangent, and they say, oh, now I feel like I can't incorporate that because it doesn't fit into my outline. But what really happens is you're keeping yourself from derailing your story and taking it off on that tangent. Um, and then another thing is, well, if you outline and develop your story fully, then like usually writers are going to be really excited about telling that story. So it doesn't feel restrictive. It's more like, this is actually the story I really want to tell. And now I feel organized and like I can tell it really well. So I find that just motivates them more and creates momentum. But when it's kind of like, oh, I'm fitting my story into a small box and some of the elements that I want in it aren't there, that's when it starts to feel restrictive. But I would say that is not the best way to outline your story.
Yeah. Well, I think about it like, so where we live, there's a super busy street not far from us, and our backyard is fenced in. And we want our kids to go and play and have fun and do everything they want in the backyard. But there's a reason that fence is there, because you can just get into a lot of trouble if you start veering off too far. So I think maybe there's some parallels there to outline. That's great.
That is so good. That is perfect. Yeah, it's kind of like creativity without boundaries is just chaos. It's chaos, pure chaos. But when you have boundaries, it can become something really cool.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Next one. Writers, if you want to be serious about writing, you should write every day. True or false?
I would say true, but I feel like I want to explain that as well. But
Okay.
we're not allowed. It's just true. So we leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Next is show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell. Yes. I would say false. I would say show and tell, because if you only tell, it's going to start reading kind of like a kid's book, or it's just there's going to be less reader engagement, less imagination. Readers are probably going to get bored. It's just not going to read like a novel. Only show, and then you get confused readers who are like, this feels like poetry or something, where I don't know what's going on. So got to have show. I would say lean more on the show, but you have to. There are times where you tell as well. So show and tell.
Show and tell. Love it. Okay, last one, and this I saved this one for the big finale. So, and this is one that I see all the time. I see famous authors say it online and elsewhere. I see a lot of, I think, well-meaning other writers who are trying to encourage other people, and people like believe this in their heart of hearts. I struggle with it, so I'm curious, and I think you might too. So, and this is the idea that, hey, Your first draft is supposed to be super messy. Like it's supposed to be just a crappy, like it's okay. That's normal to have, and it's normal and it's good and right to have a messy first draft. What does Megan McLean say?
Oh, wow. I do have a lot of strong feelings about this. Um, I just think it's so easy for a statement like that to just spread around because it feels like, oh, suddenly it's easier to write a novel. Just nothing matters. We don't have to think about it. We just write the messy first draft. But I think, and when we hear a professional say that, it's like, oh, the world is lifted off my shoulders. Stephen King touts this. He's the best. So now I can easily be like him. But I think what happens is these professionals, even like Hemingway said, the first draft of anything is crap. They didn't say that about their first, they were already established when they said these things. They know about story. They are story masters. And so to tell a new person who's never done it before, just write a messy first draft, I don't think it means the same thing. This is just my opinion, but what I think these writers are saying is don't worry about every sentence sounding great. Don't worry about the way you're writing it. Not don't worry about anything because nothing matters. You can fix it all in revisions. Can you fix it all in revisions? Maybe. Will it be more awful for you if everything's a mess? Yes, because what ends up happening is you will rewrite and have to learn structure and rewrite versus revise and actually grow in your ability to write great sentences and write great paragraphs. So I think in regards to the professionals who say these things, I think we have to take that with a grain of salt and be like, they're already masters at the craft. Stephen King's first draft, if it's messy, it ain't messy like my first draft. Okay. Like this man, and he does it all day. That's his full-time job. So I think it gives new writers a bit too much of that like excuse not to learn about the craft. And it just sets them up for honestly just more discouragement and frustration when they are done writing and they're like, oh, I thought I was promised that it would be easy to revise and fix all of this. It's really not. So I would say one thing that'll get you set up better is to think about messy writing. Totally fine. Like have the freedom to just tell the story, but messy structure, that's going to really like kill you down the line. So get your structure solid and then have fun, play with it and just let the story out so that you're not fixing both when you go to revise. That's a nightmare.
That's really good. And I've never thought about that, Megan, that distinction between structure and writing, which I don't know why, because there's developmental editing and line editing and copy editing, right? Like, so like we edit that way. So why not think about writing that way too? That's really good. Okay, Megan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I have one last question, and hopefully this is easier than the cat versus dog one. How do people connect with you? How do people follow along with what you're doing? Sign up for your courses or get a coaching consult? What's the best way to do it?
You can follow me on Instagram at megan.maclaine, or you can find me at meganmaclaine.com, or you can subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/meganmaclaine.
I love it. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you, Casey. You too.
All right. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with writing coach Megan McLean. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Yeah, Megan's great. So if you're struggling to plot out your novel, to make progress, maybe you've tried a bunch of times, you've stalled out, look Megan up, give her a call. I think she can work wonders for your novel, so look her up. By the way, if you like what you heard on the podcast today, I hope you'll consider leaving a rating and review. Your kind words mean so much to me, and ratings and reviews are so helpful for podcasts, you guys. So it's an honor just to have you listening, but if you'd go even a step further and rate and review the show, it would mean so much to me. So thank you in advance for doing that. And by the way, I hope you followed and subscribed to the show because I have more episodes coming up soon. If you want to stay connected, you can find links to resources that I've created, my social media links, how to contact me. All of that is available on my website, tcburr.com. Go check it out. And until next time, keep writing, and I will talk to you soon. Later.